Starting off this countdown, we have Paul Walker. On November 30th, 2013, Paul Walker attended a charity event for Reach Out Worldwide. He was last captured driving off in a red Porsche Carrera GT. Little did he know that later that day, the car would crash into a concrete lamppost and 2 trees before bursting into flames, killing Walker and the driver instantly. It's so sad looking at this photo. Like, Paul seemed happy. He got into the car not knowing his fate. In fact, what makes this scarier is that he might have still been alive had it not been for one text. He woke up that morning completely forgetting about the charity event that he had to go to. That was until someone texted him to remind him. Had he not gone to the event and just stayed home, things would have been different.
Coming in at number 9, we have Robin Williams, one of the greatest actors and comedic minds that has ever passed through Hollywood. There was movie after movie that this guy made that influenced people from my generation and so many generations after. And right before we get further into this point, guys, remember that you can like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell, and stick around to the end of the list because we're going to be answering some comments from our previous video, Top 10 Disney Mysteries. I mean, we can go down the list. This guy was in Aladdin, Jumanji, Mrs. Doubtfire. All of those movies were certified bangers, and this was the last picture of him before he passed. He looks so happy. He's chilling out with his monkey Crystal, and the two of them are just being the best of friends. But even having one of the coolest pets of all time wasn't enough to keep him happy. Unfortunately, shortly after this picture was taken, Robin Williams would visit the doctor and get a very sad diagnosis. It would seem that he had Parkinson's. It was devastating news that would lead to him taking his own life. Apparently, he was misdiagnosed and he actually had a specific type of dementia, which leads to paranoia.
In our 8th spot, we have Amelia Earhart. The fate of Amelia Earhart is still unknown. Did she die in a plane crash? Did she get stranded on a deserted island? We honestly don't know. In 1937, Amelia set out with her navigator Fred Noonan to fly around the world. One of the last photos of Amelia was her packing her suitcase for travels, in which she would never return from. Much like these other celebrities, she looked so happy, just excited to go on this adventure. But little did she know it would end in tragedy. Amelia and Fred were last heard from on July 2nd, 1937. The government spent 15 years looking for them. In fact, searching for Earhart was the largest and most expensive search in American history. Sadly, hardly anything came of this. They thought that maybe the plane crashed somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, but who really knows?
Coming in at number 7, we have Gene Wilder. It's impressive how Gene Wilder was able to be both hilarious and terrifying in many of his performances. Like, throughout most of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, he's kind of scary, but then when you check out Blazing Saddles, he's one of the funniest dudes around. This was the last picture taken of him, or at least the last one that was shared to the public. He lived well into his 80s, and in this picture you can see him with his daughter walking in Los Angeles. It was in 2013 when one of the most famous actors in the world would learn that he was battling Alzheimer's. This is obviously a very strenuous disease, and it can slowly wither a person away. It's a tough battle, and because of this, Gene wanted to stay out of the public eye. So after he was told by doctors that he was fighting Alzheimer's, he decided that he would stay out of the peering eye of fans and become a homebody. And I mean, it sounds like a solid move. You had an amazing career, so in your last few years it would be nice to relax. He passed away in 2016.
Coming in at number 6, we have Chris McCandless. Chris was a 24-year-old American adventurer. In 1992, Chris set out on another adventure, this time into the Alaskan wilderness. However, he never made it out alive. His death has been debated for years. Some say he died of starvation, others believe that he died of poisoning after eating toxic berries. The last photo ever captured of Chris was a picture he took of himself smiling and waving to the camera, holding a note. The note is believed to have said, "I have had a happy life and thank the Lord. Goodbye and may God bless all." Later, he was found dead by a group of hunters. The hunters were looking for a shelter for the night when they came across the bus where Chris was staying in. But when they entered, they discovered Chris laying in his sleeping bag at the back of the bus. His manes were already decomposing. Now, the last thing Chris ever wrote read, "Day 107. Beautiful blueberries." Then days 108 through 112 contained no words, they just had slashes. And on day 113, there was no entry at all. So maybe it was some toxic berry that killed him. But still, this photo is super eerie, especially because of the sign he was holding. It's like he knew he wasn't going to make it.
Coming in at number 5, we have Nikola Tesla, one of the greatest minds to ever grace the earth. This dude was straight up one of the smartest people who has ever lived. If it wasn't for this guy, we wouldn't have the radio, we wouldn't have access to electricity the way that we do today. And even though he has nothing to do with the company Tesla that makes electric cars, there would be a solid chance that those electric cars wouldn't be running right now if it wasn't for the inventions that this man made. This was the last known picture of the inventor. He looks like he was ill, but he was actually mostly thin because he had changed his diet to eating very light. He wouldn't eat meat and he mostly lived off bread, honey, and vegetable juices. Probably the saddest part about the end of Tesla's life is that he basically had no money, although he did find pleasure in pigeons. For some reason, the inventor had an obsession with pigeons. He would go to the park and feed them, and even said that they gave him some of the ideas for his inventions. That's the secret. We've got to start hanging out with more pigeons.
In our 4th spot, we have James Dean. On September 30th, 1955, James Dean died in a car accident at only 24 years old. It's said that he was driving fast and suddenly had to swerve out of the way to avoid an oncoming car, but ended up hitting it almost head on. It's said that Dean died instantly, but his passenger survived with injuries. That day, Dean was photographed posing with the very car he later died in. In fact, that car is said to be cursed. He only owned it for 9 days before his death. Later, after he died, the car rolled off the back of a truck and crushed the legs of a mechanic. Then the car's parts were disassembled and installed into other cars around the world. All those car owners also got into deadly crashes. So Dean's last picture was literally with a cursed car that killed him.
Coming in at number 3, we have Aaliyah. Aaliyah was a rising star in the R&B community, and it seemed that she was going to be the next star in the music industry. Literally everyone who was into music was talking about her. Before she was 22 years old, she had already won 14 awards and been nominated for 73 awards through different music organizations. There's a good portion of us who don't even have our driver's license at 22, but her death would shock the world. Either one of those two pictures is thought to be the last of Aaliyah. They didn't have timestamps on every last picture back then, so we don't know exactly which one it is. But Aaliyah would board a plane that was headed to the Bahamas. It should have been a nice short trip, but the plane crashed. Out of nowhere, the next big thing in music was gone.
In our 2nd spot, we have John Lennon. On December 8th, 1980, John Lennon was assassinated outside of his Manhattan apartment. Earlier that day, Lennon was photographed signing autographs for fans. The last photo of him was him signing an autograph for the man who would later murder him. It's so eerie. The photo literally foreshadows his fate. He was literally pictured with his killer. Later that night, the man in the photo, David Chapman, returned to Lennon's apartment and waited outside for him. When he came down, Chapman shot him 4 times in the back. That's just way too freaky for me.
And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have Marilyn Monroe. I mean, what didn't Marilyn Monroe do? It's thought that she changed how women could represent themselves in the public eye. She was one of the biggest beauty icons of all time. It's thought that she had an affair with the President of the United States. She was a bona fide legend, and she may never be forgotten. This was the last known picture taken of the superstar. She was hanging out with one of her buddies, Buddy Greco, who was a famous jazz musician of the time. Man, jazz has changed a lot. It used to be the coolest thing in town. There's no way you could be playing jazz now and it would get you into the arms of Scarlett Johansson. On the record, her death was deemed a suicide, but off the record, it seemed that the CIA might have taken her out. She knew too many secrets from being close to the president. They couldn't let those secrets leak out. The gods of rock and roll, a man who paved the way for the carefree and breakout behavior of the 70s. His music would define a generation, and the things he could do with a guitar would shake the heavens themselves, and this was the last picture taken of him. This guy was so legendary that there were several rumors created about this rock icon, most of them related to his music career and his habitual partying. People said he used to put acid in his headband when he went out to play. Eventually he would start to sweat and the LSD would seep into his skin, and he would be on a wild ride of psychedelics while playing in front of thousands of people. I can't even imagine what that experience would have been like. There's also talk that he wrote the whole song Purple Haze about an LSD trip, but the official statement is that it was a dream. But unfortunately, his partying lifestyle eventually caught up with him. Jimi Hendrix was found dead on the floor of a hotel room after he asphyxiated on his own vomit. This was caused by a cocktail of drugs and alcohol that he had taken, and then he would join the infamous 27 Club.
Coming in at number 9, we have John F. Kennedy. But guys, before I go any further, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel because it really helps us out. Also, hit that bell notification so you never miss an upload from us. Thank you. Alright, so this photo was one of the last photos of John F. Kennedy. It was taken just before his assassination in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963. In the photo, you can see President Kennedy in his car waving to the audience. A little while later at 12:30 p.m., he was shot in the head and died instantly. This may be one of the last photos of him, but someone managed to capture his very last moments on film. Abraham Zapruder was filming Kennedy while this all went down, and got every gory detail on camera. That's extremely sad.
Coming in at number 8, we have Carrie Fisher. She was the first love for so many nerds out there. Every kid growing up in the 80s remembers Princess Leia in a bronze bikini being kept by the disgusting Jabba the Hutt. But Carrie Fisher will always be remembered because she's one of the most important parts of the biggest movie franchise in the world. And she's had a pretty amazing career, but eventually old age will get all of us. This was the last picture taken of the famous actress. A fan stopped her in the street and asked her for a picture, and the kind soul that she is, she obliged. The next day she would be on a plane, and partway through the flight she started to experience some chest pains. Fisher was experiencing a heart attack in the air. The pilot landed and she was rushed to the hospital, but she would pass away 4 days later.
In our 7th spot, we have Sharon Tate. These beautiful photos of Sharon Tate were taken a couple of days before she was brutally murdered by the Manson family. In the photo, she was 8.5 months pregnant with her first child. You can see her posing for photos with her baby bump showing proud. A couple days later, on August 8th, Manson ordered his cult followers to go to the home that Sharon was renting and have everyone there gruesomely murdered. Why? Well, some say it's because the home's previous owner, a music producer, Terry Melcher, pissed off Charles by not giving him a recording contract. It's just sad that Sharon had to die like that, and so young. Had they rented a different house, things may have been different.
Coming in at number 6, we have Patrick Swayze. Patrick Swayze was the man of his day. Roadhouse, Dirty Dancing, Point Break, Red Dawn, Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko! Sorry.
All those movies.
Great movie.
Great movie. He was not only one of the biggest stars of his generation, but he was also a heartthrob and known for being in incredible shape. That's why the news of his sickness shook the world so hard. Patrick Swayze would be diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer and step away from film because of how ill he was. This was the last photo ever taken of him. It's wild to see this guy like this, since he used to be known for having a rock solid body, but he's withered away. It really makes you see how devastating cancer can be to a person. On the brighter side, his last moments were spent with his family, which is how I'm sure he wanted to spend them.
We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Elvis Presley. In this photo taken on August 16th, 1977, we see Elvis Presley driving home after just visiting his dentist. Little did we know that later that day he would be found dead in his bathroom by his girlfriend. Look at him driving home unaware that he was going to die shortly after. Now apparently his death is due to heart failure from ongoing drug abuse, but it's also thought that maybe the codeine pills that the dentist gave him had something to do with his death. He was known to have a mild allergy to codeine. It's thought that maybe that drug just pushed him over the edge that day. Had he not been to the dentist, maybe things would have been different.
Coming in at number 4, we have Prince. We are back again with one of the best rock stars of all time. Prince will go down as one of the best musicians on earth. He could literally play everything. Dave Grohl was once asked if he thought that Prince was a better musician than him, and he said, "Dude, Prince is a better drummer than me." That's how good Prince is. Not to mention his persona. He was a character that was so uniquely him, we probably won't see someone like Prince around for a very long time. I think a few of you out there remember the Dave Chappelle sketch about Prince.
This bores me. Is anyone up for a game of basketball?
Apparently this guy could ball seriously as well, which is nuts. But Prince's intense lifestyle eventually caught up with him. He started having serious health problems. People say that from performing nearly every night and wearing high heels constantly, he developed terrible hip and back problems. This led to him eventually needing serious painkillers to function, and this sadly led to an overdose. This was the last picture of him alive.
In our 3rd spot, we have Princess Diana. This photo was taken on August 31st, 1997, just before Diana died in a car crash. In the photo taken by paparazzi, we can see Diana in the car with her rumored boyfriend. Moments after the picture was taken, the intoxicated driver lost control of the car and crashed into a pillar. The driver and her boyfriend died instantly. Diana suffered from a concussion, broken arm, cut thigh, and massive chest injuries. She died later in the hospital as a result. It's so sad. No one ever thought that this was going to happen to them. Especially Diana, who got into the car thinking she was going to arrive at her destination safely. Coming in at number 2, we have Steve Irwin, otherwise known as the Crocodile Hunter. Steve was known for wrestling crocodiles and getting up close and personal with other dangerous creatures. The last photos taken of him were by tourists on September 4th, 2006. They saw him filming a documentary and stopped to take photos. One of the photos caught Steve waving to his fans. A little while later, Steve would die after a stingray's barb pierced through his chest. What's even more scary is that his last words were, "I'm dying." That is so heartbreaking to think about.
Coming in at the number 1 spot, we have Martin Luther King, one of the greatest men who ever lived. Martin Luther King fought tirelessly to push America towards a world of equality, to make the USA a place where people from every race could work side by side and didn't need to worry about the color of their skin. It's because of him and other people like him that we have the Civil Rights Act. On April 3rd, 1968, Dr. King was set to appear in Tennessee to talk about how black factory workers were being paid substantially less than their white co-workers for the same job. This was the last picture of him taken. Not long after this picture was taken, Martin Luther King was assassinated. He would be shot on the balcony, all because he thought that people of different races should be treated equally. We talk about people like this now so we don't forget what they've done for us.